So when I create my nature vessel, I want to start with my base. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you now. I'm going to start with my base, and this right here is way too thick. I want to create something that will not explode in the kiln. So the clay I'm using is a little bit harder than what you have, but I am going to use my hands and sort of stand up so I can put my body weight into it. And I'm going to press down. I'm pinching it between my fingers so I can thin it out a little bit. And those pinch marks, I can smooth those out later. Okay, so that's not something I'm concerned about. Those of you that are working at home do not have quite as much clay as those of us in school, so you will be creating sort of like a mini version of your vessel, which is perfectly fine. So I'm just going to pinch this all the way through until I get a thickness. Let me show you an example of a thickness I might want. Something like this. Okay, so not too thick and not too thin. If I were to pinch it super thin, like this at the end, then that wouldn't really work out. It would fall apart when it is fired in the kiln. So I'm just going to pinch it all the way through. So when I say all the way through, I don't mean through the clay so my fingers touch. I just meant to pinch the entire thing so that it's an even width. And if you have a rolling pin at home that your family is willing to let you use, that is a great option for rolling out your clay. I'm showing this as an option for those of you that do not have a rolling pin or cannot use your rolling pin. So now that I have it smoothed out to about a ½ inch, between a ¼ inch and a ½ inch thickness, I would say, I'm going to flip it over because my backside is the side that's most even since I've been pressing it against the table, and I'm going to cut my base with my knife. So think about your sketches, which you did before this, and what the shape of your vase is like. So is it sort of an oval? Is it a circle? Is it a square? What do I want to cut my base into? Okay, so you want it to be fairly small at the base. I'd say less than the size of your palm, since we're doing sort of like a mini vessel at home. If you're doing a circle, you can use the rim of a cup to help you trace around the circle, but you can always shape it later. So I am going to cut the shape of a circle here. Okay, and now I'm going to remove my circle from this piece of clay. So now I am going to smooth out the edges of my circle here, not too much. I just want them to be all going in the same direction. So that's all the time I'm really going to spend on that. So for this vessel, we're going to be using the coil technique to build it up. So what we do is we take coils and we pile them up until we get our desired height. So I'm going to use the excess clay here to create a coil. So I just cut off a piece and I'm going to grab it in my hands strongly, using a lot of strength in my finger muscles here, and forming it into sort of like a hot dog shape. And my clay is kind of dry, so I'm going to be hydrating it with my slip as I go. Your hands are meant to get dirty. So just sort of molding it, not too thin. I'm keeping it pretty thick here. Okay, but I'm just getting that general shape right now. So now that I have this, I'm going to clear some space in front of me on my table. I can stand up and use my palms to roll it out into a coil. And I'm not just doing this in one spot. I'm going back and forth here and here. And when I feel it go into more of an oval shape and less of a circular shape, I'm going to press down with my arms. And then get it into an oval. This coil is a little bit too long, so I'm going to cut it right here. And then I'm going to get it thinner. So pressing down. Okay. And then your goal can be for your coil to be sort of like the width of your knife handle, if you want something to refer to. Okay, so now I'm going to put my coil onto my base. And this is actually the perfect size because it connects perfectly. If it were too long, I would cut it off. But before I attach it onto my base, I am going to slip and score. So this is very, very important that you remember this, or else your pieces will not actually attach together. So using my knife, I'm going to create just lines all across the bottom of my coil. And notice how I'm holding my knife here. Let me adjust. I'm holding it at the edge. Okay, so I'm not too close. I'm actually farther away, and that way I can work faster. So the scoring is a very quick process. It doesn't matter what your lines look like because they're going to be hidden underneath. So now that I have all these lines going in one direction, I'm going to do another set of lines in another direction. So a way to view this is sort of like Velcro, where two pieces attach by going into one another. So now that I have this scored, I need to score this as well, just around the sides, not the entire thing. Okay. So that's sort of what you want it to look like. They're not too close together and they're not too far apart. So now that I have this scored and this scored, it's important to have both. I'm going to take my slip that I made earlier and get it on my finger, get nice and messy, and go over the scores with the slip. Okay, so it should be a sort of slimy texture when you are done mixing the slip. Okay, so that's what you want it to look like, and I'm going to press my coil in to my base. Okay, and I notice it's a little bit too long here now, so I'm going to cut off this piece. And I actually want to slip and score these two pieces together. So whenever you're connecting anything with clay, you want to slip and score, or else it will fall apart. Okay, so that would be my first coil attached to my base. So I am going to repeat this slipping and scoring method until I get a vessel that is tall enough, something that I like. Keep in mind that you want your vessel to balance and stay up. So make sure it's not too tall for the base. You can make your base a little bit wider if you would like your vessel to be smaller, but try to work with the amount of clay that you actually have. So now I'm slipping and scoring my second coil onto my first one. And for the second one, I'm going a little bit wider and sort of tipping outward so that I can get that vessel shape. Okay, and I'm doing the same thing here because my coil was a little bit too long. And I'm just going to cut it off and then slip and score them together. If you're noticing cracks in your clay like this, you can take your slip and go over them with your finger to try to smooth them out.